As the English Prime Minister, as the British Prime Minister, I'm open to looking at how the devolved settlement can be improved further. And yes, that does mean considering what further powers could be devolved. I'm not saying that Scotland couldn't make it on her own. Of course, Scotland could. Scottish people themselves, they are the ones who must make the decision. In the end, got to be the people's referendum. It's got to be their choice.
Now, I'm saying quite clearly, fine, let's hear what it is. Give us the detail, give us the beef. You can't seriously expect the people of Scotland to go into this huge debate, this great debate, the biggest debate for 300 years about the future of our country, and have people say, look, we're thinking about giving you something else, but we're not going to tell you what it is.
And now we are joined by the leader of the Scottish Conservatives, Ruth Davidson. Thank you very much indeed for coming in.
Good afternoon, thank you for having me.
How's it been for you?
I've been enjoying it. Certainly there's some clear dividing lines that are happening right across the country. I think that they be on the Constitution, and we'll be putting forward a robust defence of where I want to see Scotland going in the future. We'll work very closely with the No campaign, if it's a No campaign or a Yes to Scotland and Britain, whatever it's called.
But there's no common ground really between you, is there? I mean, you've marked your lines very clearly. What's the point of going into the talks if you're taking the Conservative position?
Sorry, I don't quite understand the question.
Well, you have said, for example, if we look at Scotland on Sunday, today, they've got a quote saying, Cameron, no further on tax powers. Scots have been warned a substantial increase attributed to somebody in Mr Cameron's office. Is that what you agree? It says, sources close to the Prime Minister, David Cameron, say an increase in powers such as Devomax is inconsistent with staying in the UK, and that they must back independence if they want full fiscal separation from Westminster. Is that the way you see it, actually? Is that the way you see it? Are you saying if you want more full fiscal powers, you have to go for independence? If we stay within the Union, if we stay within the Union, no Devomax, no more fiscal powers. Is that actually your position?
My position is that whether we want to remain part of the United Kingdom.
If you want this not to be a negative campaign on your part, and all your publicity suggests that that is the way you're trying to couch it, aren't you going to have to spell out in detail what the Scottish Parliament's powers would be and how Scotland would fit in the rest of the United Kingdom after a referendum?
There's a lot to be said in favour of maintaining our membership of the United Kingdom, and indeed, you know, our campaign theme of better together really says it all. To leave, there are all sorts of consequences then. If we are going to stay in the UK, then of course then you look and see whether or not there are to be additional powers for the Scottish Parliament. So I think it will be a positive campaign.
But you see, for a lot of people listening who are not in Scotland, I mean, they will want to know precisely what is on offer for Scots if they say no to independence.
Well, if people vote to stay in the UK, then, you know, then of course then there's a number of suggestions, and there's by no means a unified view in Scotland as to what else the Scottish Parliament might, what additional powers it might have. Not amongst the population as a whole, but certainly, you know, in relation to giving the Scottish Parliament more responsibility for raising the money as well as the being able to spend it. That's something, you know, I've talked about in the past. But the key thing, though, first of all, we've got to deal with is, are we staying in the UK or not? Now, you know, for people not living in Scotland, you know, I remind you that in 2011, the Nationalists won a majority in the Scottish Parliament. The Nationalists stand for independence. That's what they're for. They're entitled to put that to the Scottish people. You've got to answer that question first before you come on to what is it you might want to do to change what is the devolutionary settlement at the moment.
Indeed, but you can argue that independence is a much less scary notion for many people, not all, but for many people in Scotland than once it was. And we know that Alex Salmond says Scotland, compared with countries of similar size elsewhere in Europe, would be quite likely to prosper, because there are other countries that he could point to, and we know that he lists them all the time, that have done pretty well. What is there to be scared of? That's what he says. How do you answer that without appearing to be a doom-monger and a scaremonger?
My argument isn't that Scotland couldn't go it alone. I mean, most countries can, but you could do it. My argument is actually, well, what's best for Scotland? I think when it comes to the bit, most people in Scotland, they'll look at the emotions, but they also look at the practicalities.
Here's the thing, we have a distinctive message for the people of Scotland. What do we want in the United Kingdom?
Scotland's giving Ed Miliband a headache. He knows independence would make it difficult for him to become Prime Minister.
London is one of the strongest, wealthiest hubs in the world, and we're going to go into competition with London. Why would it be a good idea for us to devolve corporation tax, to cut it, so we get into competition with the City of London? There is no benefit to that competition. That doesn't make much sense to me. A lot of our young people are having to leave Scotland for work. They're not leaving because they don't have a commitment and a desire and a passion for their country. It's not about accumulating powers in the Scottish Parliament. The choice on powers, it's not about how many powers we can gather at in the Scottish Parliament. What I'm saying, the United Kingdom is a partnership. We work in cooperation. I'm prepared to say, and I recognise people of Scotland may choose to separate from the rest of the United Kingdom. We don't know what independence means. We absolutely do not know what independence means. The First Minister asserts both that it is this,
a bit clearer than
it's this huge and we'd be in the monetary union.
Control of tax and spending, it means membership of the European Union and membership of the United Nations. How would that do?
Of course it should come independent. Scotland's a wealthy country, and anybody who thinks otherwise, they're wrong.
We have moved from a situation where the question is going to be yes to independence or no to independence to one where it is yes to independence or yes to Devo Max, Devo Plus, whatever other name you wish to give it, you know, fiscal autonomy, real home rule, whatever. You know, those proposals are obviously going to have to be, you know, clarified, spelt out at some point, and they have to be, that has to happen before there's a referendum, not after it.
Well, is that not the point, that they cannot hold the line for much longer that says, look, trust us, trust us, and you know, we will actually give you. So do you think that that is not going to be credible anymore? Because presumably, who actually defines what these are? You know, you could imagine some would go further than others.
That's actually a great danger for the unionist camp, if I can use that phrase, that you might get sort of three different versions bouncing around. You're absolutely right. It is incredible, and I think that actually common sense, political sense, will come into play here, and that people will realise that you can't go into a referendum saying vote no and you never know what you might get, because if that is the case, then vote no becomes, if you like, the real leap in the dark and not the vote yes. You know.
Alice, do you agree with that?
Entirely. I mean, there are questions that have to be asked and answered about independence, but at least everybody has a decent notion of what independence might be like. It is a relatively certain thing. At the moment, from Mr Darling, from Mr Cameron, from other senior members of the unionist opposition, if you like, we have a complete lack of clarity, a complete lack of certainty. Nobody, you know, you can't actually put this as a matter of faith.
The people who live in Scotland are the best people to make decisions about their own future. Of that there can be no doubt. So this is the time, our time, Scotland's time. So get involved.